It's been a minute since I've had my cam on and had my mic on as well. Hail Satan 666. Welcome to Evil Dojo. I am the Dark Mage. There are many who have taken the name Dark Mage, so know that I am the real Dark Mage. We've got something cooking here. Check it out. So I want to go over what I've added since the last time I've talked about anything. Jesus, and the fucking dogs are outside now. I wanted to talk about what I've done since last time I actually spoke about anything. I've had some streams doing refactoring and adding new features and working on the basic underlying engine that's powering things, right? It's not enough to simply get sprites on the screen. Anybody can do that. That shit's easy. It's something else entirely to have a interlocking system of data structures actually managing the state of the game underneath the hood, and then to have a representation of that game state on top, right? Like, I'm not simply just placing these tiles. What I actually have is a dungeon structure, or rather a dungeon floor, directly written as a C struct, contains an array of another struct called tiles, and or rather it's actually called grid. Sorry, my dog's sleep has been disturbed. Hi there. You need some Wawa? Here. Be comfy. That's why it's difficult to stream even now, even with grandma having decided to dip out on this world. Schedules don't necessarily line up, and certain, gigs benefit from certain family structures and life arrangements more than others. Baby, you're gonna be okay. I'm just gonna work on my game for a little bit, okay? All right. Let me pull chat up. We have a good stream so far. No drop frames, unlike many of the other previous streams. Well, all right. So I'm going to go and talk about what I have done since last time. What's actually making it work underneath the hood, and how we want to extend it today so that we can start implementing combat mechanics. Because a lot of the, I guess, elementary pieces of the mechanics are kind of in place, but we have to kind of stitch them together in order for things to do what we want them to. And even still, we don't have a exact clear vision of how things are going to work in the final product, but we're going to experiment with something today, because this sprite actually does have a attack animation already, right? This sprite actually has something on it, and we can re-enable the cycling of the animations. Relatively easily. Greetings, viewers. Welcome to the dojo. State your name and where you hail from. Okay, so one of the things is soothing my dog. One of the things that we had in previously, and I disabled for a while, was the cycling of animations. And by cycling, I mean I had a debug function essentially wired to a certain key. In this case, it's the key A. And we should be able to iterate through the different animations that we've attached to the hero sprite. So if I press A, it moves to the next animation in the sequence. And if I press A again, there's our attack animation, right? Now we have a sword on screen, so I should be able to move over the sword, and if I hit comma, I pick up the sword, right? Now we have no real like visual indicator of the inventory at the moment, right? This inventory is there, but we have no display for it. And in a coming stream, I plan on taking a lot of time to actually implement like our first inventory screen. Like, you know, there's certain menus and things that we would want to be able to see in an RPG, something like this. So similarly, you know, we would want some sort of on-screen indicator that when the item disappeared, we in fact actually picked it up. Similarly, if you move over the shield and you hit comma, now it's gone too. I haven't implemented a way to like put items back down, and that's one of the reasons that we need an inventory or some way to like select items from the inventory, right? It doesn't have to necessarily be an item menu, but you know, an item menu is probably the most traditional way of handling such a problem. One of the ideas I had for dealing with this was also to implement like an item cycling system, because ultimately underneath the hood, the inventory is implemented as a linked list. I believe it's linked list. Actually, it might be a vector of IDs. Yeah, it's a vector of IDs. So essentially you can just like add IDs to it, and it's treated just like any other vector. And so long as the item's actually in the hash map, this doesn't really create a problem. And you you know, even if an item is like destroyed, it can still exist in the hash map. And so we may or may not need to actually remove items when they're destroyed, but we haven't gotten there yet. So what are we doing today? We want to implement basic combat mechanics, right? So you can idle. And so, like, ideally, instead of cycling animations, we want to select a specific animation whenever we press A. But we only want this animation to occur when you've equipped a weapon. Like, there is, I haven't looked to see if we have a sprite animation for like punching or anything like that yet. That might be something I look into, but at the moment, like, it's going to be a necessity to like have a weapon in order to attack. So, like, let's re-envision what this kind of workflow is going to look like, right? So you move over the sword, you pick it up, and now you can actually attack. So actually, let's disable the creation of the shield for the moment. So you move over the sword, pick it up, and then you attack, right? Like, that's going to be the basic workflow to start with. So, so let's think about this very carefully. First of all, when you press A, we want to select a specific animation. And secondly, we only want that to occur if you've picked up a sword, right? I haven't implemented like an equipment system. I don't know how complicated I'm going to make that stuff. I want this game to be fun, but I still want it to have the basic elements of like a roguelike RPG. And I know just from experience in game design and having played games my entire life, that one of the things that turns people off to RPGs is often how complicated or advanced or text-based the control systems can be, right? So I want to find a way to, like, from a game design and developer perspective, smooth these out, because I understand why those systems come out the way they are. Is because those are games made by developers for other people with developer-like brains, right? Let's be real. Like, a game like Dungeons and Dragons has a very high bootstrap time. First of all, can y'all hear me? I just want to make sure, because it looks like all my stuff is working properly. But I just don't want to like get deep into a ramble and then find out, oh shit, my shit's not right. So you pick up the sword, you attack, right? But let's start with the cycling of the animation. So at the moment, we're like simply walking through the available animation keys that sit on the sprite group. So let's take a look at lib game entity anim increment. So this grabs the sprite group from our sprite group table and then calls sprite group increment. So let's take a look at sprite group increment. Sprite group increment increments it by 2 because it makes the assumption that the sprite group has a shadow attached to it. That's enough of that. So we have two things. We have the context and like the current, right? The current refers to which animation, like subgroup, which is all sprites. So a sprite group is a list of different animations, right? So one particular sprite sheet could have multiple contexts. As an example, the idle animation, the walking animation, the attack animation, etc., all have different directions that you could be facing in. So the direction that you're facing in is the context, and which animation, like which like if you're idling, if you're walking, if you're attacking, all of that stuff is the context. Not the context, it's the current. That's like the current value. So that stuff is defined, it's basically hard coded into well, actually those values are not specifically in here. The value that we use before we get to that step is here. Like each one of these is a texture ID, and what we're looking to hard set here is like the animation index. That's what we want to call it. That's what current is, effectively. So over in sprite group.h, current sprite row is not as accurate as I could be. So the context is a part of a sprite, right? So the thing that's actually on sprite group is the current animation sprite. That's what that is, like in the nitty gritty of it all, right? So like you would have to have advanced knowledge of what the current on the hero is for attacking in order for it to properly set. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to try and find a way to do it more intelligently. So in sprite group.c, actually sprite group c, so there's set context, but then there's set. Oh, this actually sets a particular sprite. That's not what we want. We want to do like set current. So now, if index is greater than the size and it equals, then we reset it to 0, right? Else, actually, so you set it to a negative number, it'll set it to the last item in the series if you do. Now this is just, why did Copilot generate it like this? And why is it setting index instead of like the thing on the sprite group? See, another way we could do this, because I would prefer to pass it constant here. All right, so there's our set current. So if it's within the bounds, then it'll set properly. Otherwise, it gets set to like the end or the beginning of the series. So now we can be like void libgame entity animation set game state g entity id. Oh, entity ID and int index. Oh, do we what? Huh? Oh, we have to do get. And then no, then we call sprite group set current. So now we have a new function. We have to add it to our declarations. Let's make sure everything compiles still. Okay, we're good there. Okay, so using advanced knowledge of the fact that we know which animation index the attack is at, I'm gonna hard set it, because like what I was saying earlier is this actually rotates through animations, right? So if we start as idle and then we press A, it cycles to the walk animation for the current context, which is facing down right. So if I hit A, it cycles to walking. If I hit A again, the next animation in the sequence is attack. The next animation I believe is jump. I believe the next animation is spin die. I believe the next animation is soul die. And then we're back to idle. So using advanced knowledge of the fact that the attack animation is, let's see, so the way that hero gets rendered, as well as any sprites that are arranged in this way, so there will be different like ways that we go about managing sprite groups, assuming that other sprites don't have other sprite groups, is that you have the body sprite and then you have the shadow sprite, and they're two separate sprites. So when you like attach it to the sprite group for the first time, you attach the idle, and then you attach the shadow for the idle, and then you attach the next two sprites for the next group, or the next like part of the group. Like each one of these is considered a group. Well, the whole thing together is a group, but if you like, you know, knowing that we are able to rotate through these animations, and now we can also hard set it. So G hero ID, and then which one is it? So we don't even have a sprite group animation walk, do we? I didn't think we did. Yeah, see, I don't see that there. Where the hell is this defined? Okay, so let me bust out term. Can't find where my own fucking shit is at. So I think I for lowercase, line number, looking for oh, it's actually in a file called sprite group animation. Okay. Oh, nice. So this is the idea, is that we want to set it to this. So thank God for fucking Copilot being on the game there. So let's give it a shot. Oh no, it didn't work. No, so actually we don't want to set it to walk. We want to set it to that, so it did work. We want to set it to attack. Oh, that feels good. So ultimately, we don't want this to actually happen until after you pick up the sword. And sure, you'll be able to swing at empty air if you want to, because maybe you need to do that to like trip a switch or something to this effect. But So we could have a function that checks to see if a entity of a certain type exists in your inventory. So let's read through what Copilot just generated. Entity E equals hash table entity ID entity get. So actually don't, I mean, we can make this const, I think. Oh, it does. Okay. So knowing that, if it contains an item type of sword, no. No, instead it's item type of weapon. Else we will idle. All right, so I'm pressing A, nothing's happening. Now we're gonna hit comma, and I can attack now. That's pretty cool. Very basic, but very straightforward. At some point, I'm gonna have to figure out the animation situation I'm gonna have to do for shield. So we could have like attack and defense for A and D for the keys, like for controls. These could correspond to like 0 and X on a controller, or they could be A and B on like a Nintendo style controller or Xbox, or they could be Y and X. Ultimately, I want you to be able to configure it to whatever you want, but for most people who are going to be playing the game out of the box and don't want to necessarily customize the game heavily, you know, I want a very good initial default, right? So that's one thing I think about. So like, one of the things that I dislike about NetHack is the control schema out of the box. It's very right-handed. It's inconvenient key locations for movement. There was just not a lot I was a big fan of there. But here I have wired up the keypad, right? So the keypad can actually move you around. In fact, while I'm thinking about it, I'm going to add keypad controls for camera movement. Let's see, first, okay, control mode camera. Not R. What, like camera reset? That might be useful. No. Is key no, not on pad 5. There we go. Well, 5 is fine, but one. No. 1 is -1. Oh, not target. No. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, that's correct. Okay, we're getting somewhere now. Oh, hello, viewers. Wow, we got some people popping in. See 8. Oh, yeah, no. Then 9. What does it want to do for keypad 0? I just want to see. Oh, it actually reset the zoom? That's kind of useful. Okay. Good show. Okay, check it out. So, camera. Oh, wow, it's also not very smooth. Why is left and right so much smoother? I don't understand. Oh, is key pressed? Oh, okay, okay, hold on. All right, there we go. Now we got diagonal camera movement. And if I hit 0, it resets to fully zoomed out. I don't necessarily want that to be the default. So, okay, so yeah, that feels better. Check it out. We got some dudes popping in. So let's imagine the attack scenario, right? So I just picked up the sword. Now I can actually attack. And what we want to happen, we want lots of things to happen, right? Like, not only in the game mechanics sense, but also from the animation sense. So I'm gonna have to, like, there's like a damage animation for the orc, right? And there's definitions of these actual entities in the game. So let's take a look at that definition. We can organize this a little bit better. So everything is an entity, like the from the players to the enemies to the actual objects that you can pick up and use and have in your inventory. Everything's an entity. If it's an entity of a certain type, then we will use certain fields defined on the entity. If we don't, then they're defined as none, and we should never access them relative to their particular function. So, for instance, we might create another file specifically for dealing with attacking between two entities. That way we have something kind of isolated. So what we want to happen, and what we want to actually start like calculating and tracking, is things like armor. Does the attack actually hit? How much damage does it do? And that sort of thing. We could keep things very basic and have just like hard-coded numbers, but I want to keep the roguelike essence and the roguelike feel, like the RPG feel. Like, you know, it would be closer to a Zelda game if I had everything as like constant damage numbers. But when you actually go through this attack motion, like when you actually attack, I want this to, for instance, we have to have a damage value attached to the sword, right? So that's one thing we have to extend. We want, and we want that to be like something like 1d4 or 1d6 or 2d8 or 5d9 plus, you know, 10 or whatever, right? Like what the actual damage computation for that weapon is when the attack actually hits. We want that to be a, you know, relatively, you know, good value. Like I think we could store that in a struct as 3 numbers. And then when the attack actually first executes, we want the player to roll a d20 and then add their attack bonus to that number, and then compare that against the armor on the monster, right? We want all of this to happen on every attack. And because like every other monster is going to have the opportunity to do something similar. If they're right next to you, I want them to be able to attack as well. So first we have to get it working for the player, and then we have to get it working for everybody else. And because if we can do it for one, we can do it for everyone. You know, like I've extended this idea by first getting the player moving around and then having all of the other monsters move around and take their turn independently of the player. One thing I do want to do for the, you know, kind of like feel of each turn is kind of slow it down a little bit, so that like, because I've tried slowing down like the actual smooth movement and it comes out really like jittery. And one of the things I would prefer to do is like have the player move and then one monster move and then some time wait, and then another monster move and then some time wait, and then another monster move and then some time wait. So like how that is currently happening through update smooth moves for entity type. One of the things we also want to do is kind of like lock the player turn. And really we would prefer to do like we would prefer to lock the game state so that only one turn executes at a time. And it's good that I'm voicing this stuff out loud, because these things that like I really need to kind of iterate to myself and drill into my brain, because these are like the little nitty-gritty details that are going to lead to the best gameplay experience. And I want to get that locked in as early as possible before we start trying to heavily extend this thing, right? Let me think. So like player moves, and we want, of course, while the player's turn is executing, for none of the other like dude smooth moves to occur, because smooth move occurs here, and then handle NPC turn happens only if the game has received the player input for the previous turn. And if it does, then what it does here is it's actually going through and handling every single NPC turn all at once, all in one frame, essentially, which is not necessarily what we want. And while only one turn is being handled at a time, like what we would prefer is that like, because like in the future, for instance, once we actually have more intelligent movement and decision making, let's imagine that an orc is attacking the player or attacking another orc, and, or the, you know, like, let's like use the player as a good example too. The player could be attacking an orc. If another orc kills that player before you, or somehow got priority over you, obviously you would decide to attack in a different direction. So, similarly, if an orc decided to attack at a location where another orc is at because it was aggroed against that orc for some reason, then if that orc dies, then that orc may not choose to want to attack in that location. This happened all the time in Final Fantasy Tactics. I remember like multiple enemies targeting one of my dudes, and one of the enemies kills the dude with like a lightning bolt, and the other one still is targeting him with a bow. And the idea is that everyone's turn is supposed to be resolving simultaneously in those instances. Or at least there's some sort of priority that occurs. And I'm trying to think, we want to kind of lock the state of the game at certain points in order for like effects of the previous move to resolve before actually doing something else. And at the moment, everyone's move is updating at the same time, right? So like update smooth move, let's see, because while this function works, let's like take a look at it. And it also makes the assumption that there's going to always be a default offset of 12, when the reality is that I recently introduced the offset variable to the sprite group, and I think we can actually attach it. Group pointing to off X, group off Y, and this should not a really functional change, but oh wait, no, that's way wrong. The offset must be incorrect there. Or wait, I think I know what I did wrong here. So this is, so I attached a negative offset for those. Yeah, that's correct. So we hit A, but like it's not actually processing as a turn, right? Like it's processing as a as literally just, you know, hard setting the animation. But if we instead do input received whenever we press A, see, that was pretty good. Like it actually looked like the orc moved out of the way just now. Of course, the orc is moving randomly, but that just happened to look, you know, exactly like I would probably want it to look in the game. But as we start adding additional like orcs, because I can do that with just one button push, it makes the illusion that like all of these things are moving at the exact same time, right? But I think it would look better if like a character moved and then there's like a pause and then another character moved and then there's a pause and then another character moved and then there's a pause. So like to do that, I'm trying to think how it would best be, like how we could best like actually do that, right? Because the player moves and then its smooth move gets updated. So what is actually happening in smooth move? We increment by a move unit that exists on the group. There's two units. There's two rectangles. There's a rectangle and a vector, and the vector is like set after the move gets executed. So like, where do we actually do group like set move or like key up? Yeah, so we do entity move, right? And if that move is successful, then we update the sprite group move by adding -8 to the Y part of that vector. So we do -8 because that's the default tile size, right? And of course I do need to go back in and change all of these to, you know, defines that I put in libgame define, but so update sprite group move simply just like attaches it just simply like literally creates a new vector. You know, it just copies that value over into the sprite group. So if a sprite group has an existing move vector on it, then when it gets iterated over during update smooth move, then you know these values are slowly adjusted by 1 pixel at a time, so that it appears like every frame, if the entity is supposed to be moving, then it's moving, right? So if we only wanted one of these entities, one of these if we only wanted one of these dudes to be moving at a time, like we would have to handle one dude's turn and then update his smooth move. And then once his smooth move has finished executing, do the next entity's turn and then update its smooth move, right? And we're gonna have to flip a switch on and off while we're doing that, right? We have to handle someone's turn, and then we're gonna have to update his smooth move. So instead of updating smooth moves for entity type, we're gonna end up doing it by ID, I think. Let me think here. And there will be certain situations where like a tile gets, or like for instance a torch or an item gets pushed from one tile into another. So we're gonna have to end up calling this for other things as well. But I want to try and get this thing looking like one thing is moving at a time rather than everything like moving all at once. So if player input received, then we handle everybody's turn. But if we wanted to lock the state of the game while we're updating smooth move, so like if we're updating smooth moves for entity type, so like every frame, all of these entities have a move unit already on it that we're updating, right? So in order to do this iteration properly, like we would have to introduce a number of different new variables, I think. We would have to introduce a way to do this frame by frame per like entity. So like for instance, instead of like doing this in a loop like this, what we might end up doing would be creating a separate index to indicate like which entity we're currently updating, and lock the game from like because like update smooth move gets called whether or not there is a existing value on it, right? So when we get here, if like the sprite isn't moving, these if statements don't trip. And if we get here, we hard set like the position of things just in case they aren't set already. So we could like probably optimize this out, right? Yeah, it looks correct. Okay, so we got it looking all right and feeling all right still. So like for instance, during update smooth move, it's going to update the smooth move for everyone. So like every time we go through update smooth moves, everyone's moving by like 1 pixel at a time. What we want is for one dude to move 1 pixel at a time until he's done, and then move to the next one and update that one, and repeat this process without looping through it this way. Like when we're updating one, we want the game to lock, right? So like for instance, we want to do an is updating smooth move to lock the game from updating anyone else's smooth move while one dude's move is being updated. And then we want a smooth move index. Is updating smooth move equals false, and then g smooth move index starts off at 0. I'm gonna rerun it because the size of game state changed as a result of that. So so if we do G for smooth move index and then lock the game from like, because like that's the same function we're calling for hero, right? So if we lock the game from updating anyone else's smooth move while someone's smooth move is updating. Because when like if if the group for the current index is that, so Copilot knows what I'm talking about. If the group move is 0 and the group Y is 0, then we increment the index, and if it's at the end of the vector of IDs, then, and actually we should probably set the smooth move index to be whatever is the beginning, because it may not necessarily be 0, but this could be the 0th element in entity ID. There we go. Okay, so we'll do it this way. We get the ID properly, then we do that, and that's for whatever the index is, and then we just increment to the next index, and then just rotate back to the beginning when we're done. So this would effectively do what I want. So I think, I mean, even if everyone's set their turn, then this should give the appearance of everyone kind of doing it incrementally. That's what I hope. Okay, so we're moving fine still. Oh yeah. They're moving and they're like doing their own thing. Uh-oh, we got situations where dudes are standing on top of each other, and some dudes are moving outside of the bounds of the game. So that's not quite right. So that's probably one reason we need that. That little bit at the end. Let's try that again. It's pretty good. What do y'all think? How's it look? See, some of them, there is some glitchy movement I notice. Like some entities are appearing like they're moving into the same tile as another entity. So like, this is another reason why we might want to kind of like take an enemy turn and then do its animation, and then take another enemy turn and then do its animation. And also we need to lock the thing from doing anyone else's while it's doing that. If G and G pointing to is updating smooth move not equal to false, or no, is equal to false. See, he just disappeared off the map. And I'm not sure I would have seen this if I hadn't like slowed it down like this. Actually, I'm not even sure that this is like, see, we have a loop style doing it up here, right? So like, but then we never really turn it on and off, right? So yeah, everything's a struct. There are no objects in C. So yeah, at the moment we're not turning smooth move on and off, right? But we need to, in order to lock the state oops. Like is updating smooth move. Like we want to here set it to true. Oh wait. No, because then it would So if it is updating smooth move, like we don't want anyone else to be able to like do its thing, right? So we definitely want this to execute on every turn, but where we want things to slow down would not actually be here. It would be like in handling people's turns. So when it's handling turns, like, well, no. See, this is tricky. So down here, we can set this to false. So every time we come in, we set it to here. We set it true temporarily, even if the sprite's not going to end up moving anywhere. So like if we get to the end of this function and there's still move units that need to be executed, then we don't want anything else to move during this time, right? We could update the smooth move index. If we go outside of the bounds of the vector, then we update the index back to 0. And we only do this if, and see shit. So we don't want this to do this for the hero, right? So you know what, we might end up just kind of taking a pause from this whole thing. I'm getting to the end of my coffee. It's very sad. Yeah, see, we update the smooth move for the hero, and then by doing it for all of the enemies, it's going to make them look like they're all moving at the same time, which is kind of like weird, but as I was saying earlier, for attacking, right? Like for, that's really, you know, that's what the title of the stream is about, right? So for attacking, after you pick up the sword and like the player looks to a direction and presses attack, we want to actually handle an attack in a similar fashion that we currently handle movement. Because first you want to check to see that the tile is occupied, because if it's not occupied, then of course no attack can occur. And then because generally speaking only one NPC can occupy a tile at a time, there might be exceptions to this rule, but it sounds pretty straightforward. When one entity attacks a tile and there happens to be an NPC in that tile, then the attack rules would engage, right? Like that's where you have to check to see if the attack is successful, and then if it is successful, a bunch of stuff happens. So let's set up the infrastructure to get to that point. So void so we have this tile occupied. Constable is tile occupied. Is tile occupied with NPC with type. Actually, we already have this function, we just need to rename it. And is tile occupied with entity type. And we're not even using type properly. So is tile, is it? I don't have that many drop frames on my end. It's relatively good quality in comparison to previous streams. Yeah, it's dropping some frames at this moment, I can see that. Yeah, sorry about the stream quality. I can't judge the consistency of our internet. Like, it's really fast in general, and it's usually pretty audio quality is still perfect. Nice. Glad to hear that. Thank you for giving me some feedback on the stream quality. Appreciate that. Not many people do. I try to do checks and stuff before I actually go live, and I don't have any problems recording locally. And I try to do things to optimize because my rig is not the most powerful rig. So, you know, sometimes I've had streams where there's absolutely no drop frames whatsoever. And then sometimes I have streams where I have a ton of drop frames. And it doesn't seem to matter like what time of day either, or like how many people are using our internet over here. Because we're fast enough that, like, you know, 2 people are able to like have a video call like online if they want to. And generally speaking, like a video call bandwidth is usually like what you could expect from like a generally, like I know some people out there push higher bandwidth for their stream. Sometimes they utilize multiple like Ethernet connections and shit like that in order to like get better bandwidth. But anyway, like is tile occupied with entity? So we need to update this. Is tile occupied with entity type? So this is now is tile occupied with entity type. So actually, not the type of the entity that's moving into it, but rather R0 is entity player, and then R1 is entity NPC, and then return R0 or R1. Could this not all be controlled by making anything that can occupy a tile as opposed to entity type? Well, no, because like as an example, take a look at the game right now. So if I move over the sword, which is what I want to be able to do, right? Like certain entities you want to be able to walk on top of because you want to be able to pick them up. Other entities like an orc, I don't want to necessarily walk on top of, right? So instead of or, we actually need and here. So let's try that again. So I walk on top of sword, pick it up. Now I can attack. Now let's create an enemy. And now I can no longer move into the enemy because it's moving around a bunch. And because whenever I bump into it, you see in the bottom left here, sorry, I can't move my mouse at the moment. Every time I try to bump into the entity in the bottom left, it says move check, tile occupied. So this works as intended now. This was like a moderate refactoring. So we, and actually the reason I did this is that we're in the middle of writing like attack, right? So we're gonna create a new function that's like attack, and because there's multiple ways to think about this, you know, a player could be attacking a tile, like a position, or an entity could be attacking another entity directly. So you have these different contexts where like the player could attack, and we want to think about it from these different contexts because like we always have access to the player ID. That's part of the game state. So we can immediately pull the player entity out of the entity table. And if we like take the player and then we want to even look, right? Because like the attack rules can't even execute until you have two entities, but a player could still attack an empty tile. So something that might make sense would be to do like void libgame entity attack location tile position entity try attack position. So we have game state G. Yeah, that's exactly what we want. So we don't have full rules or functions for attacking yet. However, given the player ID or given the entity ID and the position they are attacking, because at some point we'll introduce like bows and stuff, so we want like a very general attack function. Like we don't want to necessarily hard code in the fact that like you have to be right next to the entity in order to attack using a sword, for instance. So in the very beginning, we actually will do that, but we're doing it this way because we want to prepare ahead of time for when you'll be able to attack like any other tile using like another weapon. So like for instance, entity type hero or E equals get entity, and then if E, so if we actually are successful in getting that entity, then get the tile at position. Dungeon floor get tile, and then if T, assuming that the position was correct. Otherwise, attacking out of bounds or something else. So that'll give us like at least a little bit of feedback. If T, then we want to get the entities on that tile, of course. So if we iterate through the entities on that tile, each one of them could be E2, and if it's got one, so entity type T type equals E2 pointing to type. If type equals entity player or type equals entity NPC. Could you send the fact that an attack is tapped into the tile itself, and then have enemies just determine based on the tile if they've been attacked or not? No, because I would prefer that the effects of attacking resolve like in the moment. So like before you know whether or not an enemy is attacking you, you have to choose that turn to defend or not, right? Like once you get like, once we have the ability to like actually use the shield, because I have a shield object too, and you can pick it up, but once we actually have the ability to like use the shield and we have some sort of animation for it, when an enemy attacks you, like let's say like it's just you and an orc, right? Like let's get the orc on the screen. So it's just you and this orc. He's blocking my sword. Get the fuck out of my way. There we go. So now I've got a weapon and I could attack him. And let's try to corner him. Okay, so he's unfortunately drawing on top of the player, and I'll probably have to I think I know a way to optimize that drawing, but yeah, he is a Weasley. That's the fun of random, right? Actually, that's one thing I have to remember to do is once I actually I mean, yeah, I'm gonna have to like seed the RNG, because I in a similar way to like Minecraft and other games, I want to be able to have players share the same like dungeon experience. So like if you random, I know I don't have like full like dungeon generation in yet, but eventually like I want people to be like, oh hey, this is a cool dungeon, here's the seed for this dungeon, check it out, and have people be able to like play the same dungeon if they want to, and that's like some, you know, super easy feature to implement. So like check all the types that can be attacked, right? So at the moment that's just NPC and player, but we'll have a little message pop up in the bottom left stating the attack attempt was successful. So we're not processing the attack yet, but this would at least get us to the point of, you know, like verifying that the player is attacking a position that has something in it that can be attacked, right? So at this point we would process the rules for attacking, i.e. entity rolls a 1d20 plus attack bonus versus target's AC. If the roll is greater than the target's AC, then the attack hits naturally, and we roll damage. So let's verify that this works, but this is just a function we've written. We haven't even put it anywhere yet, so we're not calling it anywhere. Let's see. So we need to actually check to see if tile has anything. So if it's occupied, then we do all this stuff, and then else tile is empty, right? Okay. So naturally, let's go ahead and pick this up. Now we have our sword, now we can attack, but we haven't yet put it anywhere, right? We still have to do that. So try attack position. So let's go to key A. So this works. So we're allowed to attack if we have a weapon. We're allowed to try attacking if we have a weapon. So actually, I made that a void, right? Yeah, we want to make this const bool as well. We're not returning anything at the moment, but let's see. Otherwise, it implies that an invalid ID was supplied. So at this point we would return true. Okay. So back to key A, right? So if we have, so if the player has a weapon, try and attack. So the direction that you would be attacking would be directly in relationship to the direction that you're facing, right? So at the moment, the sprite facing direction is directly correlated with the thing called sprite group context, right? I talked about this earlier. So the sprite group context, and I apologize because I'm getting the munchies really hard right now. It's about past time for lunch. The sprite group context is what controls like the appearance of direction. So you have like up, down, left, right, and we also have up, left, up, down, up, right, down, left. So we're able to avoid setting that context here because all we're doing is like hard setting the animation index. But if we wanted the rules of the actual underlying dungeon to take this into account, we would have to attach a relative direction to the player in the dungeon itself. Which means entity.h needs a new thing. If it's not facing any direction, it might be an item, right? Wherever the last direction button was sent. Yeah, but then you would also have to keep track of what that last direction button is. Not to mention, this is a rule that we would also want to apply to all of the other NPCs that have a direction facing value. So like the orcs themselves would also have these directions. But like, let's take a look at libgamedefines, because this is where like what I'm calling those directions currently are, or at least for the sprite groups. They're not very conveniently named. They're just SG, CTX, LU, RU, LD, and RD. So I hard set these directions in right here. So like if you press the right key, then this function triggers. This is like everything it needs to correctly update the context. So if you press the right key and you happen to have been previously facing another direction, like for instance, if you were previously in the right down context, then and you press right, then you're going to be still facing in the right down context. So the right down so like these only apply to animations. This doesn't necessarily apply to like the in-game, but we want to make sure that there's a relationship between how the animation looks, how the sprite looks on the screen, and what actually happens in the game underneath. So this is kind of a tricky, like, not only nuance, but like marriage that I have to resolve between like the way the game looks and how the game actually plays underneath. It's like, for instance, in NetHack, there was no like direction in terms of which way you are currently facing, so much as like when you bump into someone, you bump into it from the left, right, top left, or whatever. Because we could also have it try to like auto attack if you're just moving around and then bump into a monster. But that's like another separate problem to solve, right? So, like, if we were to keep track of the last direction button, that would at least, well, so that's still kind of hackish because, like, what if there's a situation, and this is totally going to be possible, where the player ends up on a trap that spins them around into a random direction. Not to mention, if the player incurs like a confusion status that causes them to attack in a random direction, right? So we could keep track of up, down, left, right, top right, bottom left, and like we're gonna keep track of direction, right? I think that makes sense. Because when we update the sprite group, we can also have a direct one-to-one between the sprite group context that gets set, as well as like what the current direction facing value is. Because like if you're facing down right and you move right, or if you're down right and you move down, you're still going to be in the down right context, but you would still like like when you attack, like we could still have a relationship between attacking right and attacking down right, all while still having the same animation for those different situations. I think this makes the most sense. So before I'm on for too long and before I need to take a break, so if we pick up our sword, is our attack successful? Let's see. Oh yeah, we haven't actually tried the attack yet. Oh yeah, so this is why we need that, right? So we'll start off hard coding something in and then we'll extend it outward, right? I thought it was called try attack. Oh, it's attack position. It's not hero position. So we get the hero. So we get the hero position. Alright, there's our hero stuff. We're trying to attack. We return a value for this. Let's check it out. So it caught. Oh, it says tile is empty. Huh? Nuh-uh. Oh, right. It's because it was attacking to the. Wait. Yeah, I am attacking to the right, right? Oh, shit. You got its fucking crash. Nice. Try attack. Oh. Huh. Where did it fucking crash at? Okay, so... let's see what we did wrong there. Oh, definitely not a speed run. I could speed run that faster. It says tile is empty. Why does it say the tile is empty when the dude's clearly there? I'm gonna turn off random entity movement at the moment. NPC turn. So this like handles like a random direction. Actually, previous direction could be a vector. Anyway, so handle NPC turn, we're gonna turn that off for the moment. I'm only gonna fuck with like one NPC for this like test. It spawned in, but then not updating it that the tile is occupied. Yeah, we'll see what's going on exactly. So there's our dude. Yeah, it's saying the tile's empty. What the fuck? Did we not add it to the tile? I mean, we're creating the torches and the you know, like I'm creating torches. I'm able to pick the torches up. We recognize the fact that we have a sword in our inventory, so it's not like. So I gotta double check the create orc code. Create entity. should add it to both the tile and the table of entities, which it appears to do. Not like into it, like it recognizes the tile is occupied correctly. So actually, let's do move check. Let's take a look at move check. So it takes GEXY. Is tile occupied? Is tile occupied? No, not entity type. Okay, that's better. Let's see. Right, entity type at 3.0. Yeah, that's correct. Oh, I'm passing in. Ah, geez. Oh, no. I know what I did wrong now. Okay. This is, wait, no, is that right? Okay. Oh, no, I'm not doing to the right, I'm doing to the left. Geez, I'm silly. Plus. Why would it auto mod on the letter L? That's extremely stupid. My god. Fucking Zoomer culture has ruined our ability to even do basic chats. Like, I have the auto mod on for like other reasons. I'm not trying to like highly fucking censor the chat or anything. Jesus. I'm pretty sure on here and, you know, places I have it set that, you know, this is like an 18 plus stream. I just try to prevent people from saying the obvious words that would, you know, otherwise, you know, necessitate, you know, banning and stuff. I'm thankful I'm not so big that I have to fucking mod or like, you know, do a whole bunch of banning and shit all the time. Okay, now we have that. Let's. Okay, attack attempt was successful. Very good. That's what I wanted to see. So at this point, successful attack. In any case, set the attack animation. Right? So the orc has a damage animation on him. I don't have that set here, but we can infer what it would be for the orc based off of the order that I read in the textures. So we got idle, we got walk, we got attack, we got charged attack, jump, die, and then damage. So 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Yeah, it's just slightly more than the hero has. Let's try setting the orc animation sprite on success. So we'd have to first get the orc ID. And we're going to hard code this to 12 on the assumption that that's actually what the animation group number is going to be. So we got to child t equals get tile, entity ID orc ID, entity ID type. Yeah, no, just regular, no underscore. There we go. And because there really only should be one on there, we'll break when we finish the loop, and then we'll set that animation to that under the premise that this all still works. Here we go. Moment of truth. We picked up our sword, we placed our enemy, and he appears to have just become a pile of ash. I don't know that that was the correct animation. Let's try 10. So we pick it up, place our enemy. Okay, that looks like damage. Thank you for dropping in, Latchkey. Appreciate you chatting on stream, man. Or woman, I'm not sure. I don't want to gender fucking guess, but it's kind of a cute animation for the orc. So we would really want that to only cycle once. But I think this is a great checkpoint for today too. I'm probably gonna get off stream here in a minute. I accidentally left the game running last night, and I woke up and it had been running for like over 8 hours, and it was at like 10 million plus drawn frames, which is a pretty good sign of stability, right? Like, I don't know how many hours I'd be able to run it before it like crashed due to like an overflow. Something I'm gonna have to figure out. All right, so I'm gonna leave that running while I check everything in. I don't want to write too much code before shit. Oh, I said I was gonna keep that running. Yeah, but like, so one of the things I have set up here is a build stats to like keep track of like different values as I grow them over time, such as like build time, the size of the binary, the size of the library that I'm dynamically loading back into it, you know, through code hot reswap or whatever. And at the moment, average build time is still 0.514 seconds, current build time 0.674, and we just broke 3,000 lines of code. We're at 3059, and things are looking pretty good here. So let's take a look at our changes. We've, you know, definitely done a lot today. I've talked about a lot of the different things that I want to do, which is good because I need to have at least introduced it to my forefront consciousness in order to like remember that I need to do it later. You obviously can't do it all at once, but like you see a lot of things that you want to do and you're like, okay, well, I'll have to add that in, I'll have to add that in. And if you do it in incremental steps, it becomes not as painful. Every time I sit down to this, I'm having a pretty good time, and it's not really so terrible to extend things. Initial attack interactions, or interaction. I believe that's, yeah, the first commit for today, so I'll probably do some more off stream later, but now is definitely a good time for me to take a break, get some food, charge up my wheels. Thank you for joining today. Thanks everyone who's going to be watching this VOD later. If you haven't already, please, appreciate that. It's very rare that I feel like I have the energy to actually talk while coding and doing stuff. I must be in good spirits. I do appreciate you joining. If you haven't already, follow the stream on my social medias, so you can get them at www.evildojo.com. I've been streaming pretty regularly. I have a lot of time on my hands at the moment, and I'd like to make use of it by pushing this project forward as far as possible before life starts to get in the way again, and I have to start doing more IRL stuff, which I'd like for this to be my IRL thing. So if you like what I'm doing, definitely keep joining and keep checking out for more as I push this thing forward. I'm going to keep everyone posted. We doing it in C, we doing it raw, and we doing cheap viewers getting the fucking banned at the very end of the motherfucking stream. Goddamn. This is one of the things that people be dropping in my shit about, and I gotta be like, you got these dudes. Yeah, no, I've been getting crazy spam on a lot of different places. Especially these dudes that be coming into the Twitch chat and they're like, find the best viewers on blank, or I don't even know what the blank is. So that's fun times. Wow, I've been on for 2 hours. Fucking amazing. So this was a great, successful stream, everyone. Appreciate y'all joining. Until next time.